Yamseo. Hello, all my beautiful people. Welcome to the alternate point of view. My name is Tracy Lee. And again, we are talking about Samantha Wall. We are going to go back and talk about her last day on this earth. The last video, we talked about Samantha a little bit, obviously, all that I only know from social media and the few things that people have said about her on the stand. And we talked about her ex-boyfriend and what he said on the stand. We went over his 911 call, his immediate attention from the emergency EMS and the police. And I wanted to put that background in there because I wanted to show that there was someone that confessed to her murder, and just kind of go ahead and get that out of the way. I have more to show you about the ex-boyfriend, but first I want to go over kind of exactly what happened and what we know so far as what happened to Samantha on the night and what were her final moments the night that she was stabbed to death. So what I want to show you is the layout of her townhouse. I want to show you her the night that she was killed, what she was doing, what her ADT alarm system, what her cell phone data shows, just to give you an idea of how in the world does the timeline fit for the prosecution and who they have accused of her murder. So this picture, as I showed you yesterday or on our last video, was one of the final pictures taken of Samantha. She was at a wedding for a friend. This is her on the far left in the really pretty navy blue, purplish color dress. She's absolutely stunning. She was a beautiful person inside and out, just based off what everyone has said about her. I believe she got along well with everyone. She seems like a very cheerful person. She just seemed like a beautiful person. She just seemed like she's very giving, very loving. I just believe that she was a light in a city that, seems to have a lot of, negative and bad things happen. I believe that she really was someone that everyone really loved. So it would be hard to believe that someone would hate her so much to do this to her. But given the wounds, given the just horrificness of this crime, you almost believe that it is someone that probably knew her, but I don't know. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about Samantha Wall and October 21st, 2023. Going into October, it is October 21st, October 20th and October 21st is her final night / I guess night into the next morning of the 21st. So Samantha is at this beautiful wedding, as you can see, for her friends, and she is having a good time. She meets up with another person at the wedding. He also testified on the stand that he met up with her at the wedding. They danced a lot together. They had a good time. He was highly intoxicated at this wedding, and apparently he gave her a ride home after the wedding. And he thought they exchanged phone numbers, but apparently he was so intoxicated he didn't get her correct number. So that was that from there. So he dropped her off. I don't believe he went into her apartment from what he said, but he did drop her off. And it shows her going into her home from the wedding. Her front door opened at 12:31 a.m. And there was no more motion. The system was not armed. She had an ADT system. So just so you know that, she did have an ADT system on her townhouse that she rarely ever used, according to all of her friends. She rarely ever used this ADT system. She always got notifications sent to her phone. That is how she armed and disarmed her system, but she rarely did that. She also had living room motion at 12:32. So you saw the ADT system caught her opening the front door, and it caught her going into her living room. Now, whether your alarm system is armed or not armed, your alarm system, according to ADT, is going to sense your movement. It's going to sense opening and closing of doors anyway. regardless of whether it's armed or not. It just means it's not going to go calling the police to come to your house. Um, it also reports that a sensor stops reporting for 2 to 3 minutes and starts looking for motion again. So let's say you moved the sensor. The sensor sensed motion at 12:32. Once it sensed motion, it kind of goes to sleep, goes down to sleepy time, and it's called idle mode. So that means because the alarm system is basically not really on, it's just sensing stuff here and there. So if it senses a motion, then that means it knows it's working. So then it just kind of goes to sleep, goes sleepy time, and it goes idle for however long. And it takes 2 to 3 minutes of not sensing any more motion in that area for it to go to sleep. And it didn't sense any motion, so it went to sleep. So then it senses the back door opening at 12:35 a.m. And then the back door closed at 12:38 a.m. Now, there's a lot of speculation that she was possibly throwing out trash. She could be letting someone in. She could be vaping. A lot of people have talked about that she smoked pot, so she did that outside. At 1:01 a.m., her front door opened for 30 minutes, and it had been that way since 12:31 a.m. And then her alarm was idle again from 1:24 a.m. And it stayed that way. So then you see a modem ping at 1:54 a.m. that it was like testing. So then you see motion again at 4:20 a.m. So there's motion in the living room again at 4:20, and then it goes idle again at 4:22, which means it sensed motion at 4:20, but then it went to sleepy time, and it takes 2 to 3 minutes of no more motion for it to go to sleep. So my thing is, what happened at 12:35 when the back door was open? Now, during the testimony, it has been said that someone named David was supposed to come over and spend the night with Samantha. He spent the night often with Samantha. He had a key to Samantha's house, but we don't know if he ever showed up. According to his cell phone data, he was not at her house. But again, we all know if you don't have your cell phone with you, why would you, why would it show you there? Also, the last person she texted that night was David, and she texted him a heart emoji. So we don't know if David was there. We don't know who was there. We don't know if she let someone in the back door, or if someone came into the back door, or if she was talking to someone out the back door, if she was vaping out the back door, or what happened. We have no idea what Samantha was doing. So from 12:31, when she opened her front door to come home, and they're trying to claim that her front door never closed. It was open all night long. But also keep in mind that ADT has these two things that are attached to your door, okay? One's on the frame and one is on the door. So when these two things split from each other, that means your door is open, okay? So if they're not touching, that means your door is open. Now, the ADT guy says that if they are a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch apart, that means your door is open, okay? So everyone keeps saying her front door was wide open. But I'm thinking, what if she entered the house and the front door just didn't close all the way? It just didn't meet. These things just didn't meet, okay? What if her door was just slightly open at 12:31 a.m. and it just stayed that way? It wasn't all the way open. I'm thinking that the motion that it felt at 4:20 a.m. was her fully opening the door, and motion in the living room. She's getting up because she's already been stabbed at this point. That she's getting up and going out the front door to get help because she was found outside. But we're going to get into that. So I'm thinking her door wasn't just wide open. That's what the police are trying to claim, is that her door was wide open and someone took the opportunity to go into her house and kill her. So it could be that her door was open, but it wasn't wide open. These weren't touching. So at 12:35 a.m., the back door opens, and then the back door closes at 12:38. What happened at the back door? No one has questioned that. I'm very, very curious. Was she out there talking to someone? Was she vaping? What was she doing? And then there's motion again at the front door at 1:01 a.m., and it stays open for 30 minutes. So what happens? And at 1:24 a.m., it goes idle. So I don't understand how that seems to be happening. So the front door's been open since 12:31 to 1:01. So for 30 more minutes, the front door is just open. But it could be that these things are not attached. It could be the door's wide open. It could be these things are not attached and meeting each other. We don't know. Okay, so then we have the prosecution's thought process on this is that at 4:20, Michael Jackson Bolanos goes to her house because he's out and about, uh, checking cars, stealing from cars, and suddenly he comes across Samantha's door being wide open. And he's like, holy crap, this is great. Her door's open. I'm going to go in and I'm going to steal from her house. But lo and behold, he runs upon Samantha and it freaks him out and he kills her, stabs her 8 times, and runs out the door. This is supposed to happen, by the way, in 2 minutes because by 4:23, he is seen a quarter of a mile away on a bridge in downtown Detroit. This crime scene, by the way, was so bloody that her shirt that she was wearing underneath her jacket, hooded jacket, was bloodied, so saturated, her pants were saturated that they couldn't even take any evidence off of these items because they were so saturated in blood. The crime scene was so saturated in the hallway area where she had bled out so much. And for quite some time, I would have to believe, because not only that, but Samantha, at some point in time in these hours, from the time that she got home at 12:31 a.m., Samantha had at some point obviously smoking some pot because that was in her system. She also had taken an Ambien, and I will just tell you, I take Ambien to sleep. Many people take Ambien to sleep who have trouble sleeping at night, and Ambien really does incapacitate you. It really does make you very tired. It makes you very groggy, and it makes you do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do. It makes you not remember things. It doesn't make you as alert. So the toxicologist got on the stand and acted like the Ambien was like, oh yeah, it would make you drowsy for sure. No, Ambien makes you do dumb stuff. Okay. It makes you order packages on Amazon and you don't know you ordered it. It makes you eat a bowl of cereal in the middle of the night that you didn't know you ate. It makes you eat half a banana and leave it on your sofa, much like Samantha. It makes you do things you just don't know. Okay. It also makes you defenseless, which is why they say that Samantha didn't have any defense wounds. So people who knew Samantha would probably know that she took Ambien to sleep, would know that she would be this way. Um, and the type of stab wounds that she had, which were stab wounds in the head. So the areas of her stab wounds were in places that I believe were quite personal. So her stab wounds were 2 in the back of the head, 1 in the front of the head, 1 in the back of the neck, and 1 right here. Now, I want you to understand that the medical examiner said, and then 3 more on the side. Now, the medical examiner said none of these stab wounds hit an major artery. So nothing hit like the carotid, nothing hit a major artery that would just gush blood. So she had to have been bleeding out for quite some time. These wounds were the ones on her head were rather superficial. They didn't break the uh, skull. They didn't go in deep enough to, obviously she bled a lot, but they didn't break the skull. Um, there was no knife piece broken off in there. There's nothing like that. So she had veins hit, obviously, that bled, but it was a slow bleed. It would have taken a while. Also, keep in mind it's October 21st, 2023. Okay. Keep in mind October 7th of 2023, Hamas had just invaded Israel. Samantha is the president of a synagogue, a big synagogue in downtown Detroit. She's also a very outspoken politician. Now, does one have to do with the other? We don't know, because they brushed away that this could possibly be a hate crime or an anti Semitic crime. And it probably isn't an anti Semitic crime. We don't know that. Hate crime, I would say, regardless if it has anything to do with her being Jewish or not, this is a hate crime. She was very hatefully and very just awfully, brutally murdered. And I would say someone really, really wanted her to suffer and be in pain. And she did. She suffered for a long time. So she had her door open. It was open from 12:31 to 1:01 a.m. It shows her door open 30 minutes. Then it shows everything's idle from 1:24 until 4:20 when they sense motion again. So from 1:24 to 4:20. What is happening from 1:24 to 4:20? Where is it happening? So I don't know what happened in her house, but somehow, somewhere, something happened in her house where she was attacked in her living room. From what we can tell so far, there weren't any defensive wounds. So, like I said, Ambien will make you very defenseless. It won't keep you on guard. Um, you won't really know what's happening to you. I mean, it's not like being drunk and you're just going to suddenly sober up. It really takes you out. So she probably didn't even know what hit her. And I would be remiss to say if she fell asleep on the sofa that probably the first wound was in the head. I would say she was probably attacked from behind. I don't know who did this to her, but I almost want to say it's someone who knew about her house, who knew her doors were unlocked, who knew that she was going to be there alone, or someone who knew that she left her doors unlocked, someone who had a key, all of those things. That is what I am thinking. So I want to show you her house. This is 1366 Joliet. Now, I'm going to show you, it doesn't look like, this isn't what her house looked like at the time, but this is the front door. This is the door they're saying was open. Okay. And this is the interior of the home. This isn't what it looked like at the time, but this is where they're saying that they believe possibly the attack happened. Okay. And this is where in the hallway where she had the most amount of blood, there was a lot of blood was here in this area. And there are stairs that go down. And this is the kitchen. So they didn't check the sinks, by the way, for any washed away blood. They didn't check anything for anything, actually. And you got to consider this is Detroit, right? Detroit has crimes going on all the time. They also checked to see, found a fruit bowl tossed over. So the fruit bowl that was laying on the table in the kitchen was tossed over. Um, they didn't check any of the bathroom sinks to see if anything had happened. So now this is a stairway that goes down to the basement. This stairway had uh, blood droplets on the each staircase. These are the bedrooms, which they didn't check anything in the bedrooms. They didn't say anything about the bedrooms. What I want to get to, so that's the front door. So she came out this door and she came down this sidewalk and made it down the sidewalk and then made it down this side to the neighbors almost. Okay. But what I want to show you is the floor plan. So here is the living room. Here leads down to the basement. Here's where we believe the attack happened. Here's where most of the blood and saturation was found. Okay, here's the back door. Here's the downstairs that was going down to the basement that had some droplets down on each stair step. But they did not check the sink downstairs. Now, there was not any, this is the basement again. There's a sink. They didn't check that sink. They didn't check the floor, the pavement down here for the basement. They didn't check the washer and dryer. There's so much stuff that they did not check. Okay. So they didn't check anything. So I just want you to see these pictures, this floor plan. It's a very narrow, seems very narrow. It looks big, but it seems very narrow. But what I want people to understand is this happened supposedly in the prosecution's mind. This happened in 2 minutes. That she was stabbed 8 times, and this happened in 2 minutes. And Michael Jackson Bolanos only got apparently 1 droplet of blood on his jacket, which was not even all of her blood. It's hers and someone else's, and it does not belong to him. So my question is, how can you stab someone 8 times in the head? Now, 3 or 4 of those stab wounds are in the head. 1, 2, 3 wounds in the head. The head is that's not a easy spot to just stab and pull the knife out. I mean, that's like cutting a watermelon. Okay. So, I would say that takes a little longer than, a couple of minutes to do that. Also, I want to say for Samantha being there from this time, she also had a call, okay, at 1:02 a.m. Her last call was to David. That was the emoji at 1:02 outgoing. So after 1:02, there's no more anything coming from Samantha on her phone. So it doesn't say whether her phone logs steps. She never wore an Apple Watch from what I can tell. I looked at all the pictures that I could find of Samantha. She didn't look like she had an Apple Watch on her. She had a very simple leather watch that she wore. I looked through all the pics. I didn't find anything. I didn't see anywhere where she was using any type of app that would track any steps. Her phone was found under the sofa in her living room. So what I'm trying to figure out is, was Samantha alone in this house? Because if it's not picking up movement after it picks up movement the first time, then she may not have been alone. And it may have been someone that knew her townhouse, knew how to get out. Maybe there wasn't any evidence left behind because there were so many people through this crime scene that it just seems darn near impossible to have figured out how many people or who could have possibly been in there. And I'm sorry to say this about Michael, but he's just a petty thief. He's no criminal mastermind. He's not some type of murder expert. I mean, if this was his first murder, he was masterful because he left no prints, no footprints, no nothing. If this was the first time he was going to commit a murder, he didn't leave any evidence behind, not a lick of evidence. And it just makes no sense. So I'm wondering, they say they found no footprints, no nothing. All the footprints they found, they assumed were Samantha's because she had no shoes on, and they were just bare footprints because she's literally trying to save herself. However long she laid in that hallway, and I've yet to hear a single person on the stand say how long it would take her to bleed out that much blood in the hallway, how long it would take her to fumble her way from the hallway, as we've stated, how long it would take her to fumble her way to the hallway, from the hallway through the rest of the house. Right? She's in the living room. She's here. The front door is up here. She's got to get to the front door. I mean, how is she going to get there? She's got to grab the bathroom wall, the bathroom door, the hallway wall. She's grabbing what she can. They said that in the trial. There's blood. It's wiped down. It's like where she's grabbing on. She's crawling. She has injuries on her legs, on her arms because she's crawling. She's crawled all the way out. She's crawled to the exterior. She's crawled down the sidewalk, and she dies. And one of the witnesses says that she was cold to the touch. So I want to talk about this witness that says she's cold to the touch. Okay. The witness says, this is the neighbor who finds her, says that she's cold to the touch. Finds her and says he's walking his dog. And he finds her, he touches her. He says it's dark. It's 6:30 at night, and then in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. And he finds her walking his dog, okay? And he said she was cold and she was blue, but he couldn't see the blood. Couldn't see the blood on her. So if it was dark and he couldn't see the blood, how could he tell she was blue? Is what I want to know. That's what I want to know. How can you tell she's blue if you can't even see the blood? So
group of townhomes, about 20 buildings that are oriented in a configuration to create a neighborhood.
And that particular neighborhood, is that in the city of Detroit, the county of Wayne?
It is correct.
And how long have you lived in that neighborhood?
I have been there about 4 years.
And I want to take you back to the early morning hours of October 21st of 2023. Does that day have some significance to you?
It does, yes.
What were you doing when you woke up that morning?
My wife and I were dog sitting for a friend, so we had a dog in the house, and the dog woke me up to go outside, so I was in the process of taking the dog outside.
what kind of dog?
Did you take the dog outside?
I did, yes.
And approximately what time did you take the dog outside?
About 6:20 a.m.
And when you took the dog outside, did anything come to your attention at some point?
Yes, as I went out into the little park that the meadow that's between my building and the building across, where I normally would walk the dog, I noticed something on the sidewalk at the building directly across from my unit.
And can you describe what you saw on the sidewalk?
As I saw an object there, it was still dark out and was rainy and misty, and I couldn't tell what it was. So as I made my way across the meadow, I eventually realized that it was a person that was lying on the sidewalk.
Okay. And can you describe that person's condition?
Yes, the person was laying on the sidewalk with their back towards me, and in what I would describe as a fetal position. And I noticed that right away that the person did not have any shoes on, which obviously was unusual for that location and the temperature and so forth.
Okay. Did you notice anything else about this person's condition?
Yes. Obviously, the person was not moving, so I called out, and as I got closer and I heard no response, and it was very clear that person was in distress based on the lack of shoes and the position of the body and the state of the clothing.
Okay. Did you see the person moving at all?
No movement.
Did you see any evidence of injury that you observed?
There was not immediate evidence of injury, but because the person was unresponsive, obviously I was very concerned. So I saw a spot on the body where on the person's back there was some exposed skin. The skin was blue, the feet were blue. I touched
Skin was
that part of the
blue,
body
feet
to
were blue.
try to get some kind of reaction, and I immediately could tell how cold the body was.
And was there
Cold.
any reaction when you touched the body?
No reaction.
At the time that you saw the body, were you aware of who this person was?
I was not. I based on the condition, I immediately returned to my home and put the dog in the house and called for my wife to call 911. In which she did. When we returned, it was my wife that recognized her. I did not know her.
And what is your wife's name, sir?
Jessica Robinson.
And can you explain to the jury where the body was positioned relative to the closest building?
Yes. So the way the buildings are configured, there are two units side by side with two doors next to each other to enter the units, and there's a sidewalk approaching the unit. And she was laying more than halfway up the sidewalk, approaching those two doors.
And the night of October 21st, that night, did you stay at home that night in Lafayette Park?
I did, yes.
Did you hear anything that night?
I did not.
Did you see anything out of the ordinary that night?
I did not.
And your particular home, you said, was directly across from the building where you found the body?
Correct.
Did you have any camera on your home?
We have a ring, but it's not facing that direction. It's facing perpendicular, so it does not face
Not
that
facing that direction.
And,
No cameras
When
were.
you touched the body, did you get any blood on you?
I did not.
Would you had any reason to have your elbows or your back come into contact with the body?
I did not. I was at a distance and
At a
reached out,
distance.
stretched out, and touched on the
Stretched
spot
out.
that the exposed skin.
Where? Where did you touch the body?
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Okay, so just so you know, this is my question. I have tons of questions for this guy. They ask his wife, who was not there, who did not find the body, way more questions than they ask him. He found the body. He said in the preliminary hearing that he touched her body on the lower back of her body because that's where there was exposed skin. Also, my question is, what kind of dog? How big of the dog was it? Was it a puppy? Was it an older dog? How did you control the dog? Did the dog step in anything? In this testimony, he says they were dog sitting. In the preliminary testimony, he said it was their dog. And they walk the dog. The dog wakes them up at this time every morning, and they take the dog out for a walk. And it's very, very strange that this testimony is completely different from the preliminary testimony. But he says in the prelim that he touched her in her bottom lower back. That's where the skin was exposed. He claims that he didn't get any blood on him, but did the dog step in any blood? He claims also that it was too dark to see any blood on the sidewalk, but yet he could see that her back was blue and her feet were blue. You heard him say that. Blue. Her body was blue and her skin was cold to the touch. So how long does it take for your body to turn blue after death? How long does that happen? So that's what I want to know. So I looked at these 6 to 8 hours. 6 to 8 hours after death. Okay. 6 to 8 hours. So you're telling me after he found her at 6:20. He found her at 6:20, you guys. I'm just putting this information out there because I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know how in the heck she was killed at 4:20. 4:20. when it takes 6 to 8 hours after death, livor mortis, or pooling of the blood in the body, begins appearing as dull red patches after 20 to 30 minutes. Over the next 2 to 4 hours, the patches come together to form larger areas of bluish purplish discoloration. The color changes from red to blue or purple after a few hours, which can take 6 to 8 hours. So you're looking at 2 to 4, 6 to 8. So she came home at 12:31. She is found at 6:20. So she was, I mean, there's no way she could have been blue if in that time frame. So also the temperature was 45 degrees in October. So it would take a little while for someone to turn cold, like lose that much body temperature in that degree of weather. So I'm looking this stuff up. I know it sounds great. People, y'all, if anyone looks at my search history, you're just going to find some stuff. I'm sorry. But it takes 2 to 4 hours. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe if she could have, like, that's where she probably, she got out of her house at 4:20. That's when she got out of her house. That's when the motion shows. She got out of her house at 4:20. And yes, 2 to 4 hours. Yes, she died outside. She was found at 6:20. But she was not killed at 4:20. That's not her time of death. Her time of death is whenever she died out on that sidewalk. But her time of attack is at what time? So the prosecution has a hurdle. I think that her night, I have more to go over as far as time of death, the time of attack. Actually, time of death is, call it at 6:20 or whenever they called it when they found her, or the coroner calls it. But time of attack is sometime between 12:31 when she arrived home and 4:20 when she gets herself out of the house. So I just want to go over these little integral parts that I feel like the prosecution can't answer and don't have beyond a reasonable doubt. She arrived home at 12:31 a.m. Her door was open until 1:01 a.m. And her alarm system showed the back door opening at 12:35 a.m. and closing at 12:38 a.m. Does that mean she went out, vaped for a little bit and came back in, or did someone come into the house at 1:02 a.m.? She sent David a heart emoji. And then at 1:24 a.m., her alarm system goes idle again, which means there was some movement in order for it to go idle, because you have to have movement for it to go idle. So somewhere somebody was in that house, because her alarm system was catching things, but it was also like, there's somebody here. We don't need to keep sensing motion. We'll just go sleepy time. So I don't know what was going on in Samantha's house. Something was going on in her house. And at some point in that time, between 12:31 and whenever she passed, she took her medication. She smoked her little pot, and she was chilling out, ate a half a banana, and either fell asleep on the sofa or what have you. But she was dressed. She had on sweatpants. She had on a thin long sleeve shirt. She had on a jacket. So she had on flip-flops. But she didn't end up getting out of the house in those flip-flops. But she was dressed as if she were going somewhere, or she was chilling. I don't know what she was doing, or she was dressed like she was about to go outside and do something. I don't know, or whatever. But the situation is, and the fact of the matter is that she was not attacked at 4:20. So if that's what they're hanging their hat on, they need to be looking at some other people. Now, I'm not saying it's Jeff, the ex-boyfriend. I'm just saying his confession is rather shady. I'm going to play other people's testimony for you throughout this entire just long look into Samantha Wall, because I want you guys to see that there are other possible suspects. That I find it very hard to believe that in a city of Detroit that has as many murders as they do, which, by the way, they did have a decrease in murders in 2023. So, yay for Detroit. They went from 309 to, I believe, 269 murders in from 2022 to 2023. So that's great. So yes, they would have a little more leeway to investigate some murders, but let's just be real. They solved 30 something murders in 2022 for the 309 that they had for the entire year. So for them to solve this murder in the amount of time that they solved it in is pretty phenomenal for the city of Detroit. Granted, they had the FBI, they had all these people involved, and they did that because this was a very strenuous time for us in America. Also, they released her body very quickly. They did the autopsy. She had her funeral was on the 23rd. So it was a matter of literally 24 hours. Boom, done. She is being laid to rest. I feel like they didn't even get fingerprints off of her body. They didn't even get her fingerprints. They took the time to get her fingernail clippings, but no fingerprints. They did a rape test on her, but didn't submit it. I'm just baffled at the entire situation. So because they think she was fully clothed, they didn't see the need to submit the rape test to see if, maybe, just maybe, she possibly had sex with someone that night, especially since her best friend, who knows so much about her sex life, spilled all her business to the police department. We're going to get into that later. But for right now, I just want to talk about her final hours. And her final hours, she was chilling in her house, and either someone was there with her or someone came over that she knew, and she allowed them in, or they came in upon themselves because so many people knew she had that door open. She was seeing several different people. A lot of people were interested in her, more so than probably she was interested in them. I don't really know if this was an angry ex-boyfriend, an angry wannabe boyfriend, an angry friend. I don't know. I don't know if this has anything to do with her being the president of the synagogue. It's really a mystery. But what I don't believe is I don't believe that Michael Jackson Bolanos, who is someone who possibly was breaking into cars, jumped from breaking into cars looking for any random item hanging around to this bloody, god awful crime scene, and doesn't leave a lick of evidence behind. I just find that hard to believe. And anyone else who has a question or an opinion, please give me that. Let me know what you think. But I pray for Samantha's family. I pray for Samantha's friends. I pray for Samantha. I pray for justice for Samantha. I pray for justice for Michael Jackson Bolanos. I pray that this trial it upsets me that someone possibly could go to prison for the rest of their life that could possibly be innocent. I just want there to be real justice, like absolutely just justice. So let's look for that. Wait for the next part. There's so much more about this. Like I said, this story was headline news when it happened. It was all over. It was on Fox. It was on CNN. Even the White House commentated on it, as you saw in the last video. Okay. And yes, oh yes, the president is watching this very closely, so closely that now it's at trial and no one is watching it. So please, everyone, please pay attention. There are things happening here, and there's a reason it's happening. My theory, and I'm going to tell you this every single time, my theory is that this does not fit the narrative, okay? Samantha Wall would have fought for someone like Michael Jackson Bolanos. This is exactly the type of thing she would have been standing up for. But this doesn't fit the political narrative. Not right now. This is being brushed under the rug because it is a Black man on trial for killing a white woman, a Jewish white woman. Why in the world would we put a spotlight on that? Because this will cause an uprising that we cannot have right now, not during an election year. And I don't care what you call it, but seriously, I've really never been one to believe in the whole like walking while black or whatever the sayings are. But this guy was just walking around all night. Like all the video that I have seen, he's just walking around all night. The guy's just walking around all night. I mean, he got his steps in, okay? But did he kill someone? I just don't see it. If anyone sees something that I don't see, please leave it in the comments. Please let's talk about it. If any other YouTube channels out there are looking at this and have any other things they want to add, please, by all means, I want to talk about it. I want to get more attention to this case. Let it rip. Thank you so much. Kamsahamnida. I appreciate everyone so much for watching this, and anyone who is sharing, liking, subscribing, please like and subscribe and share. Help the algorithm out. Help this guy. Help Samantha get justice. Let's just help get the word out. I appreciate you all so much.